I often have students ask when working with text boxes, Professor Hustedde, is it possible to format the text so that different words are different colors or different fonts or bolded and italicized? And my answer is, oh, you mean like this? Yeah. No, it's not possible. But wait, you just did it. Well, yes and no. This is not a text box. This is a rich text box, and it can use rich text format. Well, what is rich text format? Rich text format, or RTF, was developed by Microsoft in 1987 as a common document format amongst various word processors and across different platforms. It's largely been replaced by HTML, or hypertext markup language, but in Visual Basic we have a rich text box control. And in that rich text box control, we can specify an RTF property that allows us to have text that uses different fonts, different colors, different sizes, bolding and italicizing, and so forth. The trick, however, is getting that RTF formatted text. Within Microsoft Word, we can create text that is formatted and then go to the File menu and choose Save As, and we can select as one of the options Rich Text Format, or RTF. It embeds tags for all the fonts, the character attributes, the colors, and so forth, much like HTML. We can open that RTF code in Notepad, and here is all the RTF text with all the different coding for that simple little paragraph. You can see it's a whole lot of stuff. It's really unwieldy because it's keeping track of things like margins and pages and stuff we don't necessarily need. We can try to find the RTF text that we'd want to use and extract that and paste that into our code in Visual Basic. But unless you really understand RTF coding, it's very hard to find out what you need. There used to be some websites and utilities for getting the RTF code of a small snippet, and unfortunately those seem to no longer exist. So I created an application in Visual Basic to allow me to create the RTF text. I can enter text in this top rich text box or paste text. I can set the overall font for the text, and I'll use Arial Regular 11 here. And then I can select text and set the font of that selection. So I'm going to take Arial and I can set the attribute. Let's do bold. I'm going to make it 20 point, and I can set the color. In this case, I'll set the color to maroon and say OK. Make another selection. This one will do Arial 11. I'm just going to make it bold. I'm going to keep it black. Let's just do bold italic and say OK. And let's just I can set the color here, or I also have a button here where I can set the color of a selection. So I'll make this orange. Doesn't show up very well, but you get the idea. And then there is a button here. So it's creating the RTF code. Here's the code in this box, the second box. And then I can copy that to my clipboard by clicking this button, and also displays the text in this third box just to verify that that's what I'm going to get. So it takes the code that I copied to the clipboard and assigns it to this bottom rich text box. And I can then use that in my project. Let's take a look at the project. By the way, in the next video, I'll show you how I created this particular RTF builder. here is the project, and you'll see over in the toolbox there is a rich text box control. I use that to create this rich text box control just so we would create a regular text box. It has a property called RTF that will display the text in a rich text formatted code block. I have 5 buttons here. This is BTN 5, BTN Adams, BTN Franklin, BTN Jefferson, BTN Livingston, and BTN Sherman, the committee of 5. Let's take a look at the code for each of these 5 buttons. So here's the BTN Adams. I'm just setting RTB bio, that's what I named the rich text box, RTB bio.rtf equals, and then I have a literal string here of that rich text formatted code. Same with the BTN 5, the BTN Franklin, Jefferson, Livingston, and Sherman. Now this is kind of ugly code. It's very non-readable, and it's easy to make a mistake if you happen to leave out a character in any of this code, or accidentally delete maybe the first or last character. It's not going to work. You're going to get an error. So I think this is a great way to use resource strings. Alternatively, I set up a RESX file called declaration, and I added in the RTF text as a resource string for my 6 different resources of 5 Adams, Franklin, Jefferson, Livingston, and Sherman. Then in the code, we could actually delete all of these event handlers and accomplish everything with just this one here. Much like we did before, I'm going to dim resName as string equals sender.name. I'm going to take substring index 3 to wipe out the BTN before the names. So I'm using Hungarian notation. And then RTB bio.rtf equals my resources. I named my resource file declaration .resource manager get string, and I just have an interpolated string with the resName. It's going to be the name of our resource in curly brackets within quotes. So I can come back to here and select all of these 6 buttons, bring up the properties, and let's change the click event of all of these to show RTF resource. I'm going to go back to my code. As I said, we no longer need these. In fact, you'll see that none of those buttons now, you'll see that none of these buttons are handling anything. Rather, show RTF resources is handling the click event for all 5 of those buttons. So just to demonstrate this further, I'm going to take that code and I'm going to go to the File menu, choose Advanced, Comment Selection. So none of that code now is viable. Let's just run this. Committee of 5, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. Something went wrong with Livingston, and there's Sherman. Let's go check on the Livingston resource. And I misspelled Livingston, left out the G. Let's try this again. And there's Livingston. We can use RTF to display formatted text in an application within a rich text box control. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Programming Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.